All right, today we are diving into a book that honestly has the power to change how you look at everything. It's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. This is a psychiatrist's story of surviving the Holocaust, but it's so much more than that. It's about how you find a reason to live when you're in the darkest place imaginable. It's a tough journey, for sure, but the truth it reveals about us, about human resilience, is just incredible. Let's get into it. Frankl brings up this quote from Nietzsche. And really, this line is the absolute beating heart of his entire book. He who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. Just think about that for a second. This is the central question he had to face, and it's the one we're going to unpack today. When everything, and I mean everything, is stripped away from you, what is that why that keeps you going? So, to really get Frankl's insights, you first have to understand who he was and the world he was dropped into. Viktor Frankl was a successful psychiatrist in Vienna. He had a career, a family, a life. But in the concentration camps, none of that mattered. He wasn't there as a doctor to observe. Nope. He was just prisoner number 119104, living the same nightmare as millions of others. Now, what makes this book so unique is its focus. Get this. He wrote the whole thing in just 9 days after he was liberated. And he made a choice. He decided not to focus on the big headline atrocities we all know about. Instead, he takes us on this intimate, psychological journey into the day-to-day grind, the multitude of small torments that chip away at a person's soul. Okay, so Frankl saw the whole psychological experience of a prisoner happening in 3 distinct phases. And the first one? It started the second they got there. It was just a period of pure, unfiltered shock. I mean, just try to imagine it. You're packed in a train car for days. It finally grinds to a halt, and you look up and see a sign that says Auschwitz. Frankl talks about this strange thing he calls a delusion of reprieve, this tiny, desperate flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, it won't be as bad as the rumors. Well, that delusion, it was shattered almost instantly. The process of stripping you down to nothing began immediately. Frankl had this scientific manuscript on him, his entire life's work. He's desperately trying to save it, and a guard just screams one word at him, a word that said it all. Shit. In that single moment, he understood. His past life, his work, his identity, it was all garbage here, worthless. So, first your stuff is gone. What's next? Your name. You're not a person anymore. You're not a doctor, a husband, a son. You're an object, a thing. And the only thing they care about is the number they're about to burn into your skin. And just like that, Viktor Frankl, the respected doctor, he was gone. In his place was just this. 119104. A complete erasure of a human being. And here's where it gets really weird. Once you've lost literally everything, Frankl says this strange thing happens. A kind of morbid, grim sense of humor kicks in. A detached curiosity just to see what could possibly happen next. You realize you have nothing left to lose, except what he calls a so ridiculously naked life. It was a shield, a way for the mind to protect itself from a reality that was just too much to handle. Now, eventually, that shock wears off. And that's when you enter the second phase. Once a prisoner gets used to the brutal daily routine of the camp, their mind shifts into something Frankl called emotional death. Basically, apathy. And listen, this wasn't weakness. It was a weapon for survival. If you actually tried to feel the full horror of every single moment, you would break. It would be psychologically fatal. So the mind does something incredible. It builds a shell. Disgust, horror, pity, you just couldn't afford to feel those things anymore. And you absolutely needed that shell because the reality was just relentless. Beatings, starvation, injustice. Death was everywhere. Frankl tells this story it's almost impossible to picture, watching a 12-year-old boy get his frostbitten toes picked off with tweezers one by one. And he, like everyone else, just watched, unmoved. Things that would completely shatter a normal person just became Tuesday. But, and this is a huge but, even in that emotional desert, a spark of humanity could still survive.
Frankl describes being on a freezing death march, stumbling, his body totally numb, but his mind was still free. And in that freedom, he started intensely picturing his wife. And that's when this incredible truth just hit him like a lightning bolt.
And this is the great paradox of his entire experience. The more his physical world became a barren hell, the richer his inner world became. The world of memory, of love for his wife, even of imagining conversations and seeing sunsets. It became more vivid, more real. This was an active refuge, a secret place inside himself that no guard, no fence could ever touch. And all of this leads us to the absolute central idea of the entire book. Right in the middle of all that suffering, Frankl realized there was one thing, one single thing, that could never be taken from him. And he saw proof of it. Even in this place where every single instinct is screaming at you to just save yourself, he saw these small miracles of humanity. He saw men walking from hut to hut, comforting others, giving away their very last piece of bread to someone who needed it more.
And that was it. That was the secret. They could take everything from you, your home, your family, your name, your body, but they could never take away your freedom to choose how you respond, to choose your attitude. That, Frankl says, is the last human freedom.
This quote from Dostoevsky really nails it, and it was a big one for Frankl. It suggests that suffering itself isn't the real tragedy. The real tragedy is suffering for nothing. The way you choose to bear your suffering, that becomes a genuine inner achievement. It gives life meaning, no matter what happens on the outside. So, what's the point of it all? Frankl took what he learned in the camps and turned it into a universal lesson about life itself, about why we have to suffer at all. And here's his big argument. Suffering isn't some roadblock to a good life. It's actually a necessary part of it. He says that finding meaning in our suffering is exactly what makes our lives whole. It's not a bug. It's a feature of being human. So how do we find this meaning? Well, Frankl lays out three main paths. First, by creating something, by doing our work. Second, by experiencing something, beauty in nature, art, or by loving someone. And third, and this is the big one for his story, by the attitude we choose to take towards suffering that we just can't change. He tells this incredibly powerful story about a young woman who was dying, and she told him she was grateful for her suffering because of what it taught her. Her whole world, her entire focus, had narrowed down to one single thing, a chestnut tree branch with 2 flowers on it that she could see from her window. And when Frankl asked her about it, this is what she said the tree told her. In her final moments, with literally nothing else left, she found this deep, profound connection to life itself. She found meaning right up until the very end. And that's really the lesson Frankl leaves us with. Life isn't about chasing happiness or trying to avoid pain. It's about the search for meaning. His experience was beyond extreme, but the question he asks is for every single one of us. So I'll leave you with it. What is the why that gives your life meaning?